Hey everybody, Josh Sheridan here with the Barely Legal Podcast. I'm excited for today's show. We have Helene Daniel, who's running for Group 30 in Hillsborough County for the Circuit Court Bench. She is in a race with two other opponents, Gary Dolgen and Danny Alvarez. Danny's been on the show before. But we're lucky to have Helene come in and talk to us a little bit about her story, her career, her thoughts about the bench and what she'll bring to it, and whatever else we might stumble upon. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Josh, for having me.
All right, I know we've been trying to schedule this one for a while, and I'm gonna take the bullet for that one because it was hard for your assistant to nail me down on times, but I'm glad that we finally got you in.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
All right, so I have always known you kind of peripherally. I haven't had the good fortune to work with you on any cases, but everyone that I know that knows you speaks well of you, and so I wanted to learn a little bit about kind of your history. Were you born in Florida?
No, I was born in Paris, France.
Paris, France. That's amazing. And how long did you live over there?
Up until 12 and a half.
Oh, wow. So your formative years were spent over there.
Yes.
How was that?
It was wonderful. I mean, it was the only thing I knew. We did travel, my parents and I, and my family, my sisters.
Was it a big family? Or?
Big family. I have three sisters. I'm still blessed to have all three of them in my life. And Mom. Mom is 90 years old.
Oh, my gosh.
And she is truly the matriarch of the family. But we were a very tight-knit family. And unfortunately, due to uncontrollable circumstances called life, my parents divorced. And that was a pretty traumatic time for us. And my mother, who used to vacation in West Palm Beach in the 50s and early 60s, my aunt and uncle lived there, decided it would be a wonderful thing to start a new life in West Palm Beach. So,
what year would that have been? I'm not going to ask you how old you are, but I'm asking what year that would have been.
I'm almost certain it's 1973 is when we came over.
Oh, okay.
So I was not yet 13.
Right.
And it may have seemed like a great idea to my mom to start a new life in West Palm Beach. I mean, who doesn't want to live in Florida? But from my point of view, it was very difficult. I didn't understand exactly what was happening. But I trusted my sisters, and my sisters were completely on board. And, of course, in time, I have come to appreciate the sacrifice that my mother and my sisters have made for me. I was the youngest. Well, I was
just going to ask you where you were in the
youngest.
lineup.
Yes.
Yeah, well, yeah, still the youngest.
I get to say that all the time.
Uh-huh.
But yes, they were strongly standing by my mom, and for good reasons that I did not understand.
What's the age difference? How much older are your sisters than you? You don't have to give me the ages.
No, I love talking about my
Okay.
sisters. I love them. Nella is my oldest, number one.
Okay.
She just turned 70.
What does she do?
She's retired now.
What did she do?
She used to be a business owner and also worked in the school system
What
in
type of
West Palm
business?
Beach. Oh my goodness.
Sorry.
Just like a consignment
Oh, okay,
store,
sure, yeah.
retail type
Yeah,
of thing.
for sure. Okay.
But she also worked in the school system in West Palm Beach,
Okay.
where we've spent a whole lot of years there. And so Nella's number one. She just turned 70. Sorry, kid. And then Maria's number two. And she is a real estate commercial broker in Lakeland.
Wow.
She's done phenomenally well.
The interest rates are really good right now, so I'll be interested to see how that goes.
Look her up.
Yeah.
She's done very well for herself, and she too stood very strongly by my mom during those times. And they were the two oldest and closest in age as well. And then I have Françoise, my number three sister.
Francois, I know.
Françoise,
Anglicizing it, but French, okay. And
yeah, as French as you can get.
Yeah.
Françoise was in high school, or the French high school
the
equivalent
yeah.
when we came to America. And so that was also very difficult for
I'm
her
sure, yeah.
for different reasons. And then Françoise and I are 4 years apart.
Okay.
And then I'm number 4. And we
Okay.
do go by numbers. And when we call each other,
Number
you know,
one, number two. Okay, that's
yes, we
funny.
do.
Now I'm trying to think. My history is weak, but West Palm's pretty close to Miami. When was was it the aerial boatload? What's the name of the when everybody emigrated from Cuba
Yes.
to South Florida? Was that?
In the 80s,
Oh,
early
so it was
80s.
a little bit. So you had been here for a little bit.
A little bit.
Do you remember that at all when you were down there?
I
Was
remember
that-
reading about it.
Okay, but it didn't affect you or anything that you kind of noticed.
Not really.
Okay.
West Palm Beach, okay, so it's still part of the Tri-County area, as
Sure.
they call it now, the Miami, Dade, Broward, Palm
Right.
Beach counties.
But it's a different world, practically speaking.
Back then it was. West Palm Beach was very much a small town, very similar to what Tampa was like 10, 20 years ago, very small town feel.
Right.
But not just geographically, it was also, it felt small. It's huge now. It totally different, has changed. But at the time when we came to West Palm Beach, we have this word in French, and now that I know you speak French,
Oh, very little.
dépaysement. And dépaysement, I'm not sure exactly how to translate it, but I would have to say it is a complete change in environment.
Sure.
And of the 4 of us, well, the 5 of us, I had the hardest time adjusting physically, the heat, the humidity, the food. I was sick all the time, and I was pretty miserable. Plus, I didn't know the language, too.
Well, I can only imagine. Well, politically speaking, immigration is a very hot topic now. We're dealing with conflicting views on what our nation should be as far as accepting people, and then obviously if you throw the coronavirus on top of it, it's getting to the point where I don't know what's happening, but I was going to ask you your experience as someone from France here growing up in the 70s, but you pretty much talked on it. But do you feel that kind of colored who you are as an attorney? I know I'm kind of skipping ahead, but kind of giving you a different perspective on what people might experience of the law who aren't used to the law here or growing up in the States?
Yes, I think in short, to address in your question.
These are kind of
in a short
jazz
way.
sessions, so
Yes,
we're going
I
to be
love
all
it.
over the map. We're going to go forward, backward, sideways.
Yes. So my mom, especially my mom, I would observe a great deal of the discrimination she endured because she did not know the language, and so they wouldn't pay her as much as her American
A lesser than
counterpart.
type of
Yes.
person.
And even though we were papered immigrants, we were kind of lumped in always as, the immigrants.
Well, that's still kind of a problem.
It isn't, yes, it is seemingly that has not changed, sadly. So by virtue of the fact that we were new, didn't know the language, we were all women fending for ourselves. It was very difficult, and so I saw a great deal of discrimination in that fashion, and that really did make me stronger. And my mom has been probably the strongest advocate for us to get an education. And it really is the great equalizer. And she believed we could do anything, everything, but as long as we had that education, nothing could stop us. So Françoise ended up getting not just a college degree, but she also got a master's degree in education.
Oh, wow.
And she was a teacher for many years. And then, of course, as you know, I finished high school in West Palm Beach, went to Stetson undergrad. I studied 1 year in Germany.
Was it a study abroad, or was it a LLM, or what was the?
It was a study abroad
Okay.
program out of Stetson. It was actually my entire senior
Stetson, the
year.
land?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, undergrad. Go Hatters.
Uh,
My entire senior year was in Germany.
Oh, wow.
And my undergrad degree was foreign languages. So they ran out of classes for me by my junior year, and so sent me off to Germany. I begged them to send me to France, but they wouldn't let me.
Yeah, that would have been a nice.
It would have been a nice vacation.
Have all sorts of places to stay, and yeah. So was
Yeah.
that your first time to Germany?
It was.
And so you're what? You're a 21-year-old in Germany.
Yes, that's right. Very
How-
good.
how
I
was
turned
twen-
21 there.
How
Yes.
was 21 years old in Germany?
Loved it. I loved it. We were in an international dorm, exposed to a whole lot of different
The Berlin
cultures.
Wall, or wait, that came down.
It came down after I went back to America.
Okay.
But all of this to say, and I apologize, a very disjointed way, but that all of the traveling that I've done and my experiences as a young girl coming to America, learning the language, the difficulties we've experienced, has given me really a sensitivity to people. And I know that we're not all lucky or blessed to have the education that you and I have, Josh. And by virtue of that privilege, because it really is a privilege, we have to do more than just what we do. We have to not only help others, but we also have to have a sensitivity to people. And when they walk in a courtroom, particularly those who are not represented by counsel,
Yes.
I have an affinity for them.
Hmm.
We have to do more for them.
Right.
And so I see people as people, and I don't see people as case numbers. And I think that is really important. And that's one of the reasons I want to serve on the bench, because it is really service. It's not a glam job. I have a lot of friends who are judges, and they work so hard, and they are humble and modest and really understand the weight that a black robe carries. And it's a genuine, sincere sentiment on their part, and I see it. They're prepared. They go to court having read what's coming. They know what docket they have. All of these things are the foundation of what makes a good judge. I'm skipping ahead now.
Yeah, I love it. We're water. We're going
Yeah.
wherever it takes us. It's fine.
But it's more than being prepared. Of course, being on time, all these things that, is hit or miss with all of us. But it is an endeavor that we try, we practice, we try to do it every day consistently. But it's more than that. Being a good judge really is also seeing people for what they are, and trying to have an understanding of why they're coming to court, not just looking at their file and say, oh yeah, okay, repeat offender.
Well, no, I love everything you're saying, and it's funny because this is all what I kind of historically have touched on towards the end of interviews with some of the other judicial nominees. But one of the questions that I've asked everybody that's come on is, what do you find to be the most important, or one of the most important characteristics of a good judge? And my answer that I kind of wait for is temperament, and that's pretty much where everybody comes down. But I kind of like the way that you're saying it, because the experience of the legal system, just like the experience of this country to an immigrant, the experience of the legal system in the courthouse, especially for those who are unrepresented or it's their first time there, it's just, you set the tone for everything. You set the tone for how the case is going to go, how the people are going to behave in your courtroom, the trajectory of the case. And you've got you kind of set the tone as the judge. And with a lot of the stuff that we deal in, whether it's divorce, whether it's criminal cases, even with personal injury or wrongful death cases, we're dealing with big chips on the table. And it's not going to be ideal for anybody to be there, but you can definitely control how that experience goes. And I think that's so important, just graciousness. I think
Yes.
today we've lost that.
And dignity.
Treating
people with dignity.
people with dignity. I've met so many amazing people. I've had people on this show. I had a great guest on not too long ago. He's in a band. He's a vegan. He's raising a daughter. He does marble countertops and stuff. He was a bank robber. He had done prison time, and he has turned himself around, and just a beautiful artistic human being who had a spot in his life that got away from him, but he's just recovered beautifully. And I just think if somehow we could change direction back to graciousness and dignity and treating people with
Compassion.
Compassion. Someone said, politically we spend so much time focusing on how we're different, but we have far more in common with people than what we don't have in common with people.
I agree.
And if we can always kind of have that as a touchstone when interacting with people, I just think that permeates the whole system and can kind of change it around a little bit and have some pretty far-reaching impacts. So, we touched on it earlier with our conversation today than we do, and that's fine. But I think the temperament of a judge, is important for that reason. Would you agree?
Absolutely. It's treating people with compassion, even though everybody knows there's going to be a ruling in the courtroom. It's treating them with respect and dignity, and ensuring they understand what's being said. And not everybody speaks up sometimes and says, I need an interpreter.
Right.
So just think how many people who are already disenfranchised, not represented by counsel, and don't have an interpreter with them, or maybe it's someone from the family who's so okay on English, and they miss out so much on what is appropriately being conveyed to them, communicated to them, and the significance of what they may be giving up.
Right.
So yeah, in that regard, I have to say I have a certain sensitivity to it. And we talked about education and how important I feel it is to have an education, but I really firmly believe that all of us, as part of our education, should study abroad.
Travel. Oh my
Study
gosh.
abroad. The 1 year I spent in Germany, I was in an international dorm, so it was an eye opener for me. First of all, to be in a co-ed dorm for starters. So it's more like a big apartment building, but instead of, plush apartments, it's one room with a sink and a window.
Right.
And
Almost like a
tiny,
hostel,
yeah,
right.
it was, yes, a little bit of a closet. But it was fun. It was ours. We didn't share. There were no roommates. And then we shared the showers, the bathrooms down the hall, and then a big kitchen. And every floor had the same setup. So that part was fun, but it was all men, women, and we were all from different parts of the world, and it was incredible sharing different experiences with them. And there was a group of men I will never forget who were all exiles from Iran.
Oh, wow.
So the Shah had just been ousted, and the Khomeini had come into power, and they were the sons of prominent families who did not support Khomeini at the time. And so they had to be exiled because they were basically marked to be executed if they went back to Iran. So at that point, again, we experienced, my friends and I, my other colleagues from Stetson, there was just a very small group of us, experienced the difficulty and the challenges that other kids our age are experiencing from different parts of the world. So we're great. We're lucky. We're Stetson University students. They're sending us our little stipend for food every month. We get to go to museums and whatnot. And here are these people who are marked for death. Our age.
Well, Madge Vasig, who was on this, do you know Madge? He's a local attorney. He's Iranian, and he was our second guest on the show. And his father was in that position that you're talking about, and they were exiled because of that. And his father was actually interned because he was interviewed on a local paper, and he had made some statements that they took out of context and characterized it as anti-government. And he was interned and ultimately was able to be exiled. But Madge, who I think went to Stetson to land, he, when George Bush was president, organized a protest of George Bush, and he told me that his father was just out of his mind scared for his son because he thought that his son had potentially done the very same thing that he had done back in Iran and was scared that he was going to receive the same treatment. But in kind of a beautiful turn of events, their phones started ringing, and he was so scared that they were going to have to move and all this other stuff. And it was all these people that were calling up to praise what his son said and how, what a beautiful sentiment it was and how true it was and how, what a good young man you've raised and all this other stuff. So it was heartening to hear that, sometimes we get things right over here.
Right. It was well received.
Yeah. So, anyways, I've had the opportunity to kind of hear that story before through him speaking about his father. But no, I mean, again, travel, it's a privilege, and it's one that not everybody gets to do because, it's not always inexpensive to travel. But when I was in law school, my wife and I, we studied abroad in Greece, which was amazing. I got to experience an earthquake with my wife, which I always tell the story of that. So that was interesting. And then I was telling you before the show, I had the opportunity to go teach family law in Le Havre, France, which is effectively Normandy, right? It's kind of neighboring.
It's further north and west. Pardon me, no, east of Normandy.
But we got to see Normandy. Normandy was just amazing because after the war they had to rebuild it. So never have I seen a city which is so uniformly planned. I mean, there's kind of a look to it that's uniform throughout the city because it was pretty much all rebuilt at once. Whereas in Florida, you got strip mall, pawn
Yes.
shop, strip club, barbecue, da 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 da. You know, there it's like someone built a city all at once, and it was gorgeous. But I had the opportunity to teach the family law with another attorney locally, and it was a very interesting experience. But we made such beautiful friends. We have the friends, the Diffuse, and the Diffuse, Fred Diffuse and his wife Isa. We just got to see them. We went a month ago. My wife and I went to England and Scotland, and they
Nice.
took the ferry over to England during one of the biggest storms that they've had in like 10 years.
But
Like,
they really like
I don't know
it.
if you saw the video of the ferry boat like crashing into the dock. That wasn't their boat, but it was
Oh
that
my
same
goodness.
weekend. But
What an
anyways,
ordeal.
yeah, but he's an attorney, and so we got to spend a day with him and go see how they do things. And they do, I don't remember if it was across the board, but they do three, I think, do they call them solicitors or what do they call the judges over there? I think they call them, maybe that's what they call the attorneys.
Are you
but
talking about in England or in France?
France. I'm trying to remember now.
Well, in England, it's barristers. If you're at
Sure.
the court level, France, it'll come to me in a minute.
That's fine,
'cause
but
I
they
have
had,
to switch.
the day that I went, they had three judges hearing trials. So,
It's the same in France. They
Is it?
have they have a panel of three
Sure.
for family law as well.
sure.
I just can't remember
That's
what it's
fine.
called.
That's
but,
fine.
but it's fascinating, isn't it?
It's fascinating, and I think it gave me a different view on the practice of law, and but again, the
And
travel.
the dignity. Do you I mean did you?
Oh, it's much better there than it is here, for sure. I would say, yeah.
Very
It-
formal.
It's much more sure. It's more of a. I don't know. I don't even know what word adequately describes it, but here it's
It's
like
a very solemn process.
yes, yes.
It's very
that's fine.
very formal, and it's very serious.
Yes.
Not to take away from the way we practice law here, but you kind of see a little bit of everything. And I've been I've been an attorney over 30 years, Josh, and the bulk of my practice has been in trial work. And I see an erosion, particularly with younger lawyers, where either they're not taught trial etiquette or they don't know how to practice trial etiquette. But I don't want to just pick on the young lawyers because there's some who know exactly what they're doing, and others maybe, depending on maybe where they went to school, I don't know. But I think generally speaking, don't want to pick on the younger lawyers. I think what I mean to say is that generally speaking, I see a certain amount of erosion in terms of etiquette, not just vis-a-vis opposing counsel, but also towards the court.
And I agree, but this brings me back to kind of one of my bones to pick that I brought up is I think it's a two-way street though too. I think it's got to come from the court to the attorneys and from the attorneys to the court. I know the court's in a hard position because the case is being laid at their feet to make a decision, and their job isn't to make everybody happy. Their job is to follow the law.
Right.
So obviously sometimes you're going to be ruling against people, but in doing so and exercising that power, getting back to the temperament thing, I think in my experience, I see a higher level of respect with judges who have better temperament than the reverse, and I've talked about it before, but there's a couple judges that I've seen who've run multiple times to get on the bench, and they get on the bench and it seems like they hate it. It seems like they don't want to be there. And so, it's one of those things where, I agree with what you're saying.
It begs the
but
question is, why did you become a judge?
For sure, but also, I think everybody owes respect to each other.
I don't disagree with that.
Right.
You're right. No, it's a two-way street. But going back to the temperament, though, you touched on that, and I meant to make a comment, and then I forgot. I started talking about
Okay.
France, but I think most people know when they go to court, whether they're represented by counsel or not. I think they know, Josh, that someone's going to win, someone's going to lose. I don't think they go into the courthouse thinking that so much as they hope
Right.
that they have a fair day in court. And I think that's what most people really focus on. I hope I get treated right. I hope I have a fair day. Win or lose, I hope I feel like I had my day in court.
And you see that. There's times when I was a prosecutor where, I treated someone respectfully, but they got jail time or they got whatever, and they were fine with me, So I definitely understand the phenomena that you're referring to. But going back just a little bit, so how did the seed of law get planted? When is it that you kind of made that decision?
So that was back in France. I used to love arguing and defending my friends in school, and my father back then used to, you know, make fun of me and say, you should become a lawyer one day. Of course, I don't know, I was 6 or 7 years old. I didn't know what it was or what it meant, but it sounded like I got to argue and defend other people, so it made sense to me. So that was the very first time the seed was planted. When I used to think about it, as I learned more about it, I never envisioned it would be in another country.
Yeah.
I mean, it was something I wanted to do. It was in the back of my head, of course. But when the whole divorce thing happened, we were so discombobulated, for want of a better word, each in our own ways. My two oldest sisters worked really, really hard to support my mom and Françoise and I. That was their job. And, you know, they were 21 and 20. They could have so easily gone on with their own lives and done their own thing. They could have stayed in France. They could have come to America. I know their dream was to go to California and live there because everybody, you know,
The 70s, sure. Beach
tapped,
Boys, yeah, everything.
sure,
Yeah.
everything happy happens in California. But they stuck it out with us, supporting us, working really hard, and really showing Françoise and I, you know, the kind of work ethics that it takes, and also what it means to be a family. And to this day, thank God, we're still a very tight-knit
Sounds like an
family.
amazing family, amazing mother. You know,
Yeah,
some
Mom,
very
Mom's awesome.
strong people in your life. So that's great.
Strong women.
Strong women.
Yeah.
Well, strength. Yeah, you know, the sex to me doesn't matter. If you're a strong person, that's to be admired. So where did you go to law school? I know you went to undergrad at DeLand. Did you go to Stetson Law for?
Yes,
Okay.
I went to no.
Okay.
Sorry. No, I went to Nova
Oh, okay.
College of Law. No, before it was Southeastern.
Right.
I went to Nova in Fort Lauderdale. So I came back from Germany and worked for about a year to start saving for law school, and applied to Stetson and Nova. Got into both, but at the time I still was. So I became totally fluent in German.
Oh wow.
And
So are you trilingual?
I was then. Now,
Yeah, okay.
not so much. But and I also studied a little bit of Russian while I was
wow, I
in
heard that
German.
one's tough.
Yeah, it was very hard. So by the time I got back, I felt like I hadn't been around for a long time, and I kind of needed my mom around. I knew law school was going to be tough, and I worked for a firm in West Palm Beach at the time, and one of the ladies who worked at the firm was also a student at Nova, and she really was a strong advocate and persuaded me to apply there. So eventually I did. I got into Stetson as well, and then decided I would stick around the East Coast just because I could be a little closer to my mom and my sisters. And then I thought, well, if it doesn't work out at Nova, I'll transfer back to Stetson. But I love Nova.
Right.
I loved it, and I don't know if you know, it was at the time right on the perimeter road that separates the Fort Lauderdale airport from the rest of the
Oh,
town.
no, I didn't know that.
It was,
Oh wow.
it was very noisy.
Yeah.
But we were in our own little world, notwithstanding the landings and
Sure.
takeoffs. But it was great, and it was well endowed, extremely good library, amazing professors, and I felt good there. I stayed there, and eventually graduated from Nova.
And so what was the first job after you graduated?
My first job first before I get to that, I was a clerk at an insurance defense firm
Okay.
during, I want to say, my second year in law school. Very good firm, and it kind of opened up my eyes to what else is out there. Because
Right.
we're so segregated when you're in law school. We're such baby students in terms of the law.
Not only that, but did you take an insurance defense class?
No, of
did
course,
you
they
take
didn't
a
teach
plaintiff's
that.
class? Did you take
No.
a how to manage your own small business class? Did you take a billable hours class? No, you're learning ingress
Exactly.
and egress and the
Exactly.
rule of perpetuities and
None of this stuff we're ever going to
arcane
need.
stuff that that's
Right.
a whole other podcast that I could do. So anyway, yeah.
So applying the practicalities of what we're taught or not taught in law
Right.
school is really the challenge. And I would have to say a couple of things really helped me. I took an immigration course, because I thought that's what I was going to do. I thought it was in my heart to help people who were similarly situated as I was, as my family was. And unfortunately, that didn't work out for me. I also took trial at the same time and evidence, and I just fell in love with that, and that was the end of that.
Did they have trial team, moot court, law review, all that stuff when you were there?
We only had two things. We had law review and moot court, and
Okay.
I was moot court coordinator. So
Okay.
I was in that
The
in that
appellate
group.
space, yeah.
Yes. And after law school, well, I did. We're skipping ahead. So during my last semester of law school, I did the Supreme Court certified internship, and I want to say we were the pilot class.
Oh, wow.
I'm not 100% sure, so I I don't want to misquote years or anything. It was a while back, but I thought we were the pilot, and I did my internship at the Palm Beach State Attorney's Office.
Okay.
And so, speaking of practicality, that's really where you learn
Oh, for sure.
everything, and the things you learn to separate the stuff we learned that we're never going to use in law school to the stuff we need, like evidence and rules of procedure and all sorts of other little things like talking to a witness. I took a psychology class in law school, which was phenomenal.
Psychology, both in dealing with counsel, judges, clientele, but then also mental health. You know, I think they should teach a mental health for attorneys. I wish that I had the wherewithal, the funds, the power, whatever, to create a pilot law school that actually was directed at what you have a high probability of running into and seeing how those attorneys perform, as opposed to those with more of a traditional. You know, I think it's very due for an overhaul. But
That's a great idea.
yeah.
Yeah, the curriculum is a little stiff. And then back then, just by way of example, environmental law classes didn't exist, Josh. It was
Sure.
just starting to be a thing, and people were starting to make law in environmental law, but there were no courses being taught. So, by virtue of the same thing, they were just starting to experiment with psychology classes, at least at Nova. I took one, I'm so glad I did. But it's also negotiating.
Oh yeah,
It's
getting to yes and all these other things.
body,
That they,
yes, exactly.
yeah.
Body language, learning all these things to be observant in a courtroom, really pick up on the intangibles, and the communications that people convey, the messages we telegraph to one another
Oh.
without even being conscious of it. And that's really the meat of being, I think, a trial attorney, an effective trial attorney, but in any event. So my first job, you're not going to believe this. I really wanted to stay with the state attorney's office, but I didn't because I was offered a job by Burger King Corporation, don't
Oh, wow.
laugh, to work in their
corporate or
corporate down in Miami and to groom me to be an international transactional attorney.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I thought, I will never have this opportunity to use my languages, my education, and travel, which of course I love to do, again. But I can always get back to the courtroom.
right.
So I did that.
How long did you do that for?
Excuse me, maybe I want to say, I actually cannot remember, 1986, right out of law school.
I did this to Joe Redner. I asked him a ton of dates, and he started getting angry at me. He's like, "Stop asking me years. I don't know."
Well, I'm still smiling at you, but
Yeah.
doing math, it was at least 2, maybe 3 years. I'm not sure. In the midst of all of this, I met my husband, Bill Daniel, also an attorney in town, and so we met at Burger King. He was an attorney there already, and then next thing I know, I'm engaged. We get married. It was very, very, very fast, and I know I continued to work there for a while, and I think it was either 89. Bill would know all this, either 88 or 89. So a couple of years, at least 2 years, maybe 3 years, I stayed with Burger King. And it was amazing. It wasn't exactly what I thought it was going to be. I never got to be the international transactional attorney that I had
I have
hoped.
one colleague who works at Checkers and another one who works at Outback or whatever. So I don't know that they do exactly what you did, but the inner workings aren't as glamorous as it might have been perceived, at least for them.
Right. I didn't really know what I was getting into, but what I did get out of that, they had amazing training for all of their attorneys in the real estate development division.
Oh, I can imagine.
And in that department, they taught us franchise law, more stuff we didn't learn in law school, by the way. Franchise law, negotiations, development, real estate, contracts, not just drafting contracts, and this is complex contracts, to say the least, but pulling them apart. Those are skills I have taken with me and I still use for my...
Reading insurance policies.
Absolutely.
And yeah, for sure, you
Right.
know,
And if you know how to write them, then you know how
to
to...
read them.
Well, you know how to write them, read them, but you know also how to pull them apart when
Yeah.
you're representing a client who needs to maybe get out of a contract. So those are skill sets that I will forever be grateful to Burger King and all of my bosses there. But so that was my first job and out of law school anyway, and then eventually I went back to litigation. So
And what did litigation, the plaintiff side, or what did you do?
so I found this little firm in Miami called Ludovici and
Okay,
Ludovici,
okay.
and
Two good Irish names.
and they were primarily a real estate firm,
Okay.
but
Well,
got
gosh, you had the experience.
Ex-
Yeah.
but they needed an attorney to go to court and try everything because they hated going to court.
Right.
And so they had Maryland Casualty as a client, and they were doing a little bit of sub-row work. I'm like, yeah, I can do this. So I became the sub-row attorney, and that grew into more. Did a little bit of family law, but wasn't totally enamored with that. But I fell in love.
Really?
But I
You
felt
love family law?
but I did do contested adoption litigation.
Oh, well, that's a world unto itself. I won't even touch those.
That
I
was
send all those to Jeannie Tate or
horrible.
whoever,
Yeah,
locally.
Jeannie Tate, of course, the absolute best in the state,
Right.
probably in the country at this point.
Yeah.
But yeah, those were brutal. And I started doing more and more insurance work through Maryland Casualty and then other firms, not firms, other carriers that sent work. And then eventually Bill and I moved to Tampa.
And you opened up a practice together?
Nope. I continued to do Maryland Casualty,
Okay.
wanted me to continue to do their work, so I brought them with me. I had another baby. So first I had my
How
daughter.
many children do you have?
I have two.
Okay.
I have two. And my
Boy
daughter...
and a girl, girl and a girl?
Yeah, my baby girl is now a lawyer.
Really?
In
Locally?
Fort Lauderdale.
Oh, okay. What type of
Oh.
lawyer?
Yeah, she's an insurance defense
Oh,
attorney.
okay.
She's with Marshall Dennehy, very
Okay.
good firm. But her father and I are heartbroken that she's chosen Fort Lauderdale to live at.
As you know, life takes you all over. Maybe she'll
True.
circle back
Of all
this way.
mothers, I know I
Is she
appreciate
married?
that. No,
Introduce
no.
her to a nice Tampa boy. And
She is with, her boyfriend is also a double Gator.
Oh, okay.
They both went to UF, met in law school, and he is also practicing law in, I want to say Fort Lauderdale, Miami, I'm not real sure. So they're both super bright
well, I
kids.
can imagine.
Very, very, very nice.
I'm always wondering what the children of two lawyers turn out like, because my wife and I are partners, and we've got a boy and a girl. So I'm very sarcastic with my children, and my wife says, they're young, they don't get sarcasm. And I say, yeah, but they'll get it before anybody else does.
That's true. You sound like my husband, Bill Daniel. So
Yeah.
your wife is right. They
Yeah.
can't tell the difference. But one day they'll use the sarcasm on you and you'll...
Well, the other story that I tell is I go to a therapist, and I'm always talking about how concerned I am about what harm I'm doing to my children. And the therapist always says, studies show that the mother has a much greater impact on the children than the father does. And so I tell my wife, it doesn't matter what I do. It's all on your, on your shoulders.
I don't know. I don't know that I would agree with that. Bill's pretty
I'm
influential
joking.
dad.
joking.
Yeah. He's pretty influential and he knows it. But our children learn how to negotiate right at the dinner table
Oh, yeah.
every night. That was one of the things that we always insisted on. And they're very good. They don't even have to be lawyers. They're very good at it.
So when did you leave? Was it, did you say Merrill?
Maryland Casualty.
Okay, yeah, when did you leave them?
No, they when I moved to Tampa, I continue to represent them. I had
Okay.
my son, so I have my son Will Daniel, and he is in commercial real estate as well,
Oh, wow.
and doing a great job. Went to UF. He loves what he's doing. Gives him the flexibility that he needs. Not everybody likes a 9-to-5 job in the office, so it's perfect for him.
Right.
And very bright young man, and I'm very proud of both of my kids. So I already had Veronica when we moved to Tampa. I think she was 2, and then I was pregnant with Will. So continued to work out of the home for a little bit, and then a year later, first of all, I was very lucky to stay at home for a whole year with Will and Veronica. That was a gift. I don't know how other moms do it. My heart goes out to every mom who has to go back to work after 6 or 12 weeks. It is really hard to do. I got lucky. I got to stay a little bit at home, but then I had this great opportunity working for Prudential Property and Casualty. They needed a litigation attorney, and so I began working with Janice Camp. She was my supervising attorney. I was the associate trial attorney. We had 2 legal assistants. We were a 4-women office,
That's great.
and we covered just about every county around here: Hillsborough, Pinellas, Hernando, Pasco, Polk. I went down to also Manatee, Sarasota, all the way down to Venice, and then she went to Orlando. So we had a huge territory, and I did that for 7 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Quite a breadth of experience. So currently, what's your practice?
Okay, so we're jumping ahead.
Okay.
After Prudential, I had another amazing opportunity to work with a firm called Gallagher, Howard, and Daniel, and that was it was Gallagher and Howard at first, and then it became Gallagher, Daniel, and and Keenan eventually. But David Gallagher and Michael Howard had a statewide practice litigation again where we defended nursing homes, physicians, nurses, occasionally another professional such as an architect or an engineer. We had some construction cases, and those were fun, but for the most part it was high-end, complex medical issues dealing with either brain injuries or sometimes wrongful death, just really the complex
Sure.
nursing
we do first
home.
party property. We've done some nursing home. We do plaintiffs.
So you know how complicated, especially the medical aspect of it.
You almost have to have a medical degree to be an effective litigator on those cases. I mean,
you have to have them, and we did. We have phenomenal nursing or nurse paralegals with nursing backgrounds, and they were just amazing.
Yeah.
And they would steer us in the right direction. And sometimes we defended our clients because they were undeserving of the lawsuits that were coming at them, and other times we saw some serious issues and we helped our clients make things better. So it was really a great learning experience, but it was good, and at the same time, even though it was complex, I started to see the application of working with physicians and nurses in their business practice to try to keep them out of trouble.
Right.
And so eventually that's what I have phased in. And so to kind of answer your question in a very roundabout way, that's what I'm doing now. I represent doctors, and if they're surgeons, their medical surgical practices in their business.
For compliance and prevention and all that sort of stuff.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. And so if I still need to go to court, I will. I certainly defend them in depositions. I think that's absolutely important. I go over licensure, regulations, whatever, the coding, billing, whatever, just to keep them not only just compliant, but also above scrutiny.
I have a friend, Scott Bitterly, over in St. Pete, and his father, I forget his first name, but Bitterly's the last name, but they basically do that, but they do it for engineers. Whenever, they're building, commercial structures, hospitals, all these different things, they go in advance to make sure the litigation doesn't happen down the road.
Exactly.
So I definitely understand. So the decision for judge, when did that pop up?
The very first time.
This is your first time running, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
I have put in my name many times for an appointment by the governor, but unfortunately, I don't know if it's 9, 10, or 11. It's somewhere in that number.
And my friend Nat Kidder over in Pinellas County has been on that list a bunch of times too.
Yeah, it's very difficult. And I always thought, well, if I have to run, I'll run, but I won't run when it's a presidential election year, and here we are. But I think the very first time I was filled with that sense of anything is possible, Helene, was when I got sworn in as a lawyer.
Mm-hmm.
I had finally achieved my dream of becoming a lawyer. I just really honestly never thought it would happen. I worked very hard for sure, but you still don't ever think you're going to get there.
Right.
And then I got there, and it was just phenomenal to me.
So
And
what else can I do? Yeah.
Yes, that's exactly it. And I got sworn in by one of my professors who had just been appointed to the 4th DCA,
Oh, wow.
Judge Barry Stone. I asked him for the privilege of being sworn in by him, and he said yes. And my mom was there. I got sworn in, and for the first time, I had this genuine feeling, or belief, I think, belief, that I could be anything,
right.
do anything, and be a judge. And so that was the beginning. And over the years, of course, you know, I've been in court many times. I've had many trials. I've been a mediator since 2001, which I have to say is one of my favorite things in the world.
Well, getting back to psychology and how
Yes.
that might, I mean, wow, I think that, you know, it's funny, as a family law attorney, we kind of have these backroom discussions about which mediators we want to use, which ones we don't want to use, what type of mediator is right for this case, what type of mediator is right for that case. And there really is so much about the presentation more than the subject matter. You know, you can, you know, my wife worked at Solomon Trop for a little bit. She worked under Robert Trop. Do you know that firm? Or
I know the
Sandy
firm.
Okay. So Robert Trop, he doesn't practice anymore, but she worked with Matt Thatcher under Robert Trop, and he could sell anything to anybody. And I don't mean in a sleazy or a slimy way. He just,
It's the presentation.
oh yeah, and it's funny because my wife always used to tell me that people would come in to hire him, and he'd sit there and he'd talk to him and he'd listen to him and identify him and talk to him sports and all this other stuff. And at the end of the consult, he'd say, "I'll be right back," and he'd come in and he said, "Here's a list of some attorneys I think you should probably talk to. I'm not sure that you can afford our firm, but here's some people that might be better at." And guess what they immediately did? Pulled out their pocketbook.
You're the one I want.
Right, and he's showing value by so there's just so much of that, like you mentioned. But you mentioned mediation, and I've actually just come off of about 3 mediations with 3 mediators and 3 very different experiences, and so
And different styles.
Right,
And
right.
and you're right, depending on your client, opposing counsel, what it is you're trying to accomplish, because it's not always necessarily a settlement. I mean, yes, ideally that's the ultimate goal. But
sometimes
sometimes
it's educational. It's getting them to
Exactly.
understand what's
it's
at
getting
play,
your client to a point
what
where
their
they
exposure is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so
No,
you
I
need
agree.
that right mediator, and we all have different styles. And I can't tell you how many times I've had PI attorneys reach out to me and say, "I have a very difficult female client. I need a woman mediator."
100%. Family law too.
Yes, to be in that room, because there are too many men and they feel overwhelmed by that, and I totally understand that. So we balance out the room sometimes for no other reason by virtue of gender. But yeah, depending on what the agenda is, you got to pick your mediator very carefully, and yes, the psychology goes right into it,
And
for
the sex thing, it matters too. So we have 4 attorneys at this firm. I'm the only male, and
Love it.
Yeah. Well, I always tell them, I was like, any marketing materials, I'll stay off of. You guys do it. Well, and for one thing, I
funny.
have this conversation a lot. You look in the PI space. How many all-female firms? I'm not saying there aren't any, but how many do you know of?
They're a handful.
There's a handful, but
Yeah.
you don't see billboards. I mean, Francine Hay is
Fran Hosh,
Fran
yeah.
Hosh is probably the only one that I can think of.
That's
But
true.
it's all Culpeper, Curlin, Morgan and Morgan, Abramson and Utterwick.
Well, we have Ultima, of course, Ultima, Morgan, and Emma, the German Shepherd.
Sure.
Yes.
But my point is I think there's a space in the PI world for that's not being capitalized upon, and I think there's a lot of situations like the one you're talking about where you have the adjuster, you have the attorney, you have the structured settlement guy, you've got the mediator,
Right.
and you're a woman in there, and it's just, whether you're a alpha or not an alpha or whatever else, I just have to imagine that matters a lot to, female litigants, female clients, and so apart
I
aside from just the psychology.
Yeah, I do know of one. Tatiana Buhoff is.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, she's
No,
doing a great job. But you're right.
There are amazing attorneys,
No, you're
but
right. There are not a
we don't
whole
hear
lot
about
of them.
them.
Exactly.
They're not in the.
And
in
there's
the,
certainly enough market share to fill that void because there is a
sure.
need. And I can totally see where a woman will want to be represented by a woman. I totally get that.
Well,
Same thing in a family law context or PI context. I totally get that.
Well, so I used to partner with Brian Camerino. I did all of his personal injury work for him and Eddie Reyes, who subleases the other half of this office. I see the Latino client flow that's coming in and out of there, and there's such a loyalty there. My friend Damien McKinney, who was on this show last week, he's a gay attorney, and he has a lot of that area feels more comfortable with him, and we're getting, with the changes of the laws, we're getting a lot more of that type of work, and so there's a shorthand there where you don't have to explain as much, and so whatever the situation is there, I try to be everything to everyone, but sometimes you just can't be. You can't be everything to
None
everyone.
of us can be.
So, I do think that that's important. Well,
I think it's nice that you try, but you can't.
well, yeah, I think we should try and understand that we can. If we can do both things at the same time, that's probably, walking and chewing gum is hard to do, but we try. So anyways, how have you found the campaign to be? Has it been more than you thought it would be? Has it been different than you thought it would be? How is it working for you?
That's a great question. When I was first starting to reach out to friends and mentors to find out whether this was the right time for me, everyone told me it was going to be really hard, but never explained to me what that meant.
Yeah, sure.
It's really hard, Josh. It's really hard, and I don't even know how to qualify that statement, but it is physically and emotionally demanding. It's very taxing, and if and when you should ever decide to run for judge, Josh, just in case.
I do not have the temperament.
I have
I'm Irish and have an Irish temper, and that wouldn't work well.
Well, let me just say it has to be a family decision.
Right.
And I was, notwithstanding my desire and my wanting to be a judge for a long time, and it's always been in the back of my mind. In fact, I feel it every time I walk into a courtroom, honestly. Every time I walk into a courtroom, it's like, why am I not a judge yet? Okay, so my kids know I've been wanting to be a judge forever. Of course, my husband knows. And so when I finally started to circle back to this, now my children are grown. We've gotten through all of that. My husband and I are finally in a place where we can start refocus on each other, being empty nesters and all that. So the conversation comes up, and I said, we really got to make this a family decision because it's going to affect everybody in different ways.
Right.
But for sure, it's going to affect everyone.
Both your girls, or your girl and your son, are out of the house, you said.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, but it's still invasive.
It's a family Sure.
thing, and I really needed everybody to be on board. So when I asked my daughter, I said, "Give me, one good reason why I should do this, because I'm not sure. As much as I want to be a judge, I'm just not sure because this is a huge decision." And she said, "Mommy, you have to show me the way."
Yeah. Yeah.
So what do you say
a lot,
after that? Yeah, I'm like, dang it.
Now it's happening.
Did you have to say
Right.
that? So, and she's right. We have to show our children the way.
God bless you for saying that. I don't think I have. I've always considered myself a moral and ethical person, flawed but moral and ethical. I was an only child, and my parents' view, they just both passed away within the past 2 years, but their view of me was my North Star. But in their absence, my children's view of me has been my moral compass. And, I always have this conversation in my family law cases. It's like, as much as you dislike this person who's on the other side, and whatever it is negative that you have to say, they are half of your child. That is your child's mother, or that is your child's father. And how you're treating that person is going to resonate with your child, and not only in their view of that person, but how to treat people. And so, I, as much as I can, always, whether it's my relationship with my wife or how I treat other people or whatever the thing may be, you know, their eyes are always on you, even if their eyes physically are on you, and what they pick up on, you know, because I know as an only child, what I picked up on in that household shaped me so much today. So I hear you, you know, I can feel the shiver down my spine if my daughter said something like that to me. So it's clear that you had no choice in the matter at that point.
Right. So to be clear, Veronica, um, she's to blame. No.
Right. It's all your fault.
It's all your fault, but I love you, honey. So yes, it's been a family decision. My boys contribute, my boys being Bill and Will, contribute in their own unique way. They recently attended the Rotary Club stag dinner,
Oh, wow.
the all meat thing,
Yeah,
and it was
the
a
dance card's
huge,
full.
huge dinner. Yes, so they're doing their part in things that they can handle. I'm doing all the things that I can handle. But to answer your question, it's as hard it has been. I am really trying to enjoy the journey. And it's
That's
been an
it.
amazing journey. I have no
You'll look back on
way,
it.
yes, I have no way to predict or even control what 200,000 people may or may not do in August.
Right.
There's no way.
Sure.
And this county is so big. It's so big. I started a year ago campaigning in
Right,
March, late
right.
March of 2019. And I've been campaigning very hard. And if you follow me in social media, you'll see I'm in 2, 3, 4, sometimes 5 events a day. I still can't even touch but a fraction of
Yeah.
all of the people who live in
Well,
Hillsborough
it's that
County.
being everything to everyone and knowing that you can't be. It's kind of, that applies to that, you know, that thing. Well, before we wrap up today, is there anything else you'd like to tell to the voters about yourself or why you think you're the pick for the spot?
Oh, thank you. I think I'm the pick for the spot. I think I have the trial experience. And I think what most voters don't realize, if they're non lawyers, is that we're essentially applying for the position of trial judge. And I think it takes a trial attorney to be a trial judge. And so I want to put that out there. And I also want to send out the message that it's absolutely important to vote in the primaries. That's when all the local judicial races are decided. And a lot of people think it's going to be in November, but it's actually in August 18. So please vote in August. And look us up.
Where can they find you? Where
Okay.
can, so what are your websites, your social media, your law firm website, all that stuff?
It's all Helene Daniel for judge.com
Okay.
or some version of that. Helene Daniel for Judge on Facebook and Twitter, Insta, all that stuff.
What's the firm website?
My law firm is Daniel Law Group.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. Well, thank you so much for coming by. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you, Josh.
Sometime you can come back and we can talk about France.
Oh, I
and,
would love
that
to.
would be great and see how
Anytime.
everything goes this year. But wish you the best of luck. It was a pleasure. Thank you for coming by.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. Likewise. Thank you so much.
All right.